Hey guys, I'm Alun, and today we're going to be looking at my personal list for the top 10 best RPGs of all time. I hope you enjoy. In a time when all of us Zambians knew of RPGs were Final Fantasies, this game was a new welcome addition to my collection. That was one of the most uniquely stylized games that I had played up until that point. It had a gorgeous world and amazing art style, with one of the first titles to pull off the anime look very well. It had a very long and engaging story, starting you off with trying to chase down a villain that had cursed your kingdom, your king, and your princess, yet mysteriously left you unharmed. The game had its own version of DLC when you completed it, which only added to the number of hours that you could invest into the game. It had good depth and activities to engage in, such as alchemy and capturing strong monsters to build a monster team that you could use to gamble in the monster pit. Each character had 5 different classes that you could specialize in, so you could mix and match how you wanted each of them to play. The world was very large and an absolute joy to explore. There is also excellent voice acting, which is still rare in an RPG up until this point. My gripes with it are that the enemies are reused in every game in the series and look exactly the same each time, and those that aren't bosses simply look childish. Also, some sections can feel very repetitive or unnecessary, but otherwise, it's a game that you simply have to play, which you can now get on your Android, Apple, and on the 3DS, so you have no excuse. After your plane crashes into the ocean and you try to swim to safety in the sanctuary of a lighthouse, you get transported to a civilization after its collapse, with cannibals, sadistic dentists, and gigantic powerhouses hunting you down if you piss them off. I give you BioShock. It had one of the most eerie and unique worlds in video game history in the form of Rapture, which could at times scare you more than some dedicated horror games. But you could fight your way to the end with a fun variety of powers and guns, with some interacting with the environment to complete some amazing kills. It had a great blend of shooting and RPG elements, which to me is the perfect example of a good action. Excellent story with some shocking twists that I bet money you wouldn't have seen coming. Last but not least, fighting big daddies were some of the most intense boss battles in video games in my opinion. The game had multiple endings, although not many choices for you to make. Only one significant choice during your gameplay, to be honest. Honestly, I feel bad for you if you missed out on this game. Sending you on a roller coaster of emotions, this is easily one of the best Final Fantasy games to be found on any medium. It had gorgeous graphics for the time when it was released. Considering that it was one of the earlier PS2 games, it was a fantastic achievement. For me, it had the second best Final Fantasy story, and easily the best in terms of romance. Even the most hardened of you watchers would be hard-pressed to not have a chikonko in your throat now and again. All the characters are great, all of them. Majority had excellent character development throughout the story. Although, spoiler warning, the way that Waka changed from an unquestioning devout religious man with racial tendencies to a more open-minded and tolerant and understanding individual was believable, and a lesson that most of us should learn on how easy it is to have prejudices and how destructive the consequences could be. It had the best level of customization in any Final Fantasy game in my opinion. 12 was good, but limited in terms of stats and gaining MP for some characters with naturally low MP. The sphere grid let you put any character on any path you'd like, so you could have Lulu's little doll run up to a gigantic behemoth and deal 9999 damage or more. As with most Final Fantasy games, 10 had good side quests, including Chocobo training, finding new summons, and of course, Blitzball. It was the first Final Fantasy to have voice acting, which for the most part was good, but did have some unbearable moments. You all know about the laughing. And for me, Yuna's voice was just absolutely awful. Spoiler. Even though you do get an airship by the end of the game, you don't get to fly around the world as you do with other Final Fantasies. Apart from those two gripes, absolutely fantastic game. A god living in isolation in order to run from the sins of his past and trying to not let his son make the same mistakes that he did. But with the constant struggle of trying to be affectionate to Arceus, and trying to raise him to be a strong, independent warrior in the new, harsh, unforgiving lands of the Norse gods, Kratos has yet to face his biggest challenge. I give you God of War. Just play it. It's new, the prices are going down. Just play it. I won't spoil anything. Blasting enemies in front of you with your shotgun, taking cover behind a pillar as bullets fly past, then taking out one of the bastards with a sniper rifle and dashing across space to headbutt the companion while your two teammates provide cover fire. This is what it means to be Commander Shepard. The game really felt like you were a space commander exploring all the nooks and crannies of the universe, meeting interesting aliens and different cultures rich with lore right from the start of the game to the end. It had an excellent story that got you invested in what happened with the dark goings-on and what secrets were lost from eons past. Lots of side missions to do, some involving some team building, helped add loads of hours to already interesting campaign. The game provided fleshed out characters with believable motivations, as well as good lore and backstory regarding the whole world. Spoiler: depending on how you built your squad and how well you know them, you can either have them all survive in the game or all die. My only gripe is that not much difference is made when decisions are made in smaller campaigns. Otherwise, great game. A franchise that needs no introduction, people across the world, both old and young, know the name Pokemon. And this was one of the games that brought about the worldwide revolution. The act of catching Pokemon was and still is in a league of its own, but this was building on the already brilliant Red and Blue, which I had also played. Yellow added some aspects lacking from the originals, such as being able to interact with Pikachu and owning a Charmander, Squirtle and Bulbasaur in the same game file, which felt more like the show. It was a joy to try and find new Pokemon and fill up your Pokédex, provided your parents had remembered to buy you enough batteries to keep you going. Trading Pokemon was a revolution for the time, and helped to keep the Game Boy going strong. Pokemon was a huge upgrade from Tamagotchis in the sense that you felt that your Pokemon grew with you as they evolved. This game will always be one of my treasured memories. When RPGs were starting to feel like a copy and paste of one another, along came a game with so much depth it was overwhelming. Dragon Age Origins was one of a kind for its time, excluding Knights of the Old Republic. It truly felt like your decisions mattered in the grand scheme of things. The deep combat system encouraged both live action and pausing to tell your units what to do, which increased the amount of strategy you needed to get through tough encounters, all of which felt challenging without feeling unfair. The game had good lore of the world from its past to the present, whilst feeling as rich as a Tolkien novel. Some may prefer the more actiony newer titles, though I personally think this is a detriment, as you definitely required more planning as opposed to button mashing with the original game. My gripe though is that the characters do look stiff when interacting sometimes, but otherwise, absolutely one of my favorites. The very definition of the name Final Fantasy. I didn't appreciate it as much on my first playthrough, but maybe that's because of how young I was. But with each new playthrough, I love it more and more and more. Final Fantasy IX has a charming world and lovable characters in a fantastical medieval setting. It also has a great story, focusing on different aspects about our human existence. The main themes regarding each character were done brilliantly, especially those regarding who we are, what it means to live and die, and the power of friendship. As corny and Saturday Toontime as that sounds. Good amount of side activities to do kept the game indulging. Chocobo Hot and Cold, the Tetra card game, and treasure finding, amongst others. The music was meticulously crafted with a very olden feel, apart from the track You Are Not Alone, which to date is one of my favorite tracks in any medium ever. The game can be very confusing if you're not paying attention, and may need a second playthrough to fully grasp the story. While the main story itself is resolved well, There are a lot of unanswered questions and open plot points that to this day bring about a lot of theories and debate. This can be considered a good or bad thing, considering that at the time, the team considered this to be the first game they were planning to do a sequel to, although we know today that it was 10-2. So for all we know, there could be one developed one day, though I personally wouldn't want one. Some gems like this deserve to be left alone. During the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 console wars, this game single-handedly justified me getting my 360 before the PlayStation 3. Some people may put Skyrim as the better game, but I think Oblivion was executed much better, especially for its time. It had a beautiful and stunning world that encouraged you to go out and explore and experiment in, with way more investment for me than Skyrim, as it felt much more alive. Some would argue Skyrim had a bigger world, but I'll take a smaller world with more content in it any day of the week. It also had better side quests, including the Fighters Guild, Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, and the Magic Guild. It had a very good magic system, allowing you to capture the souls of enemies and place them in soul stones, which you could use later to create new spells for your arsenal. It had a good overall story for the main campaign as well. My issues were that some of the moments felt very staged. Also, another issue is that a lot of the Oblivion realms seem very repetitive. Once you went in one, you had basically done them all. Other than those, it was a fantastic game. Not only my favorite RPG, but a tied place with one of my favorite games of all time. This needs no introduction. The legendary Final Fantasy VII. What an incredible story. I don't even want to say anything that could spoil it. Just please go play it. With a whole entourage of lovable characters, except Cait Sith, he can go choke on a furball. I tried to raise all of their levels equally as I didn't want anyone to be left out. Except Cait Sith, go choke. One of the best and believable villains in video games, from his looks to his attitude, his weapon, and even his theme song, which composer Nobuo Uematsu took a unique approach to creating. I recommend you go and watch the creation on YouTube. He also had one of the most chilling and haunting cutscenes from any video game ever. Period. Good customization for a Final Fantasy game, especially an older one, in the form of materia, which lets you create any character that you would like. It also had an excellent replay value, which helped have the game's story make more sense. You will have many moments when you rewatch certain scenes. It has a mix of serious and funny moments that just work for each scene, leaving you chuckling 1 minute and giving you goosebumps the next. It has lots of things to do, like in most Final Fantasy games, but this easily has the most. Bike riding, skateboarding, catching and breeding chocobos, racing chocobos, all the activities in the Golden Saucer, and a strategy army fight on a mountaintop. The only issue for new players is that the graphics are rather dated. Otherwise, this is one of the most recommendable games to give any hardcore player. Long story short, there is a reason people have cried for a remake. But I say don't wait for it. Grab it now on your phones and enjoy yourself.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and smash that like button and don't forget to share with your friends.
And remember to click that subscribe button and click the bell icon so that you get notifications.